Welcome, weary traveler. You've left behind the noise of the world and stepped into a realm untouched by time. Here, candlelight dances upon ancient stone walls, and the air carries the soft hum of forgotten lullabies beyond these gates. The night is gentle, and every story is a silver thread, weaving warmth around your heart. So, rest your mind. Let each word be a quiet step into the halls of dreams, until sleep, tender and deep, finds you. You are safe here, and slowly, the world drifts away. Wonderful. Settle in, take a deep breath, and let the world slow down around you. Here begins your story, told softly, like the sound of firelight breathing against stone walls. Chapter 1. The quiet of the great hall. The night opens slowly, like the turning of an ancient page. Outside, the wind drifts through bare branches, carrying with it the faintest scent of wood smoke and damp earth. Inside a great hall of stone and timber, 6 centuries ago, the air is warm and gold with candlelight. This is where our story begins, not with kings or battles, but with something far gentler. The simple, beautiful act of gathering for supper. It is the year 1425, though time here feels unimportant. The sky beyond the narrow windows is a deep velvet blue, and the stars above the thatched roofs of a quiet village shimmer like tiny silver coins. A manor stands at the edge of the fields, built of thick oak beams and limestone. Within, a hush fills the hall, that waiting stillness that comes before a meal. When the world seems to exhale and listen, the long tables have been scrubbed smooth by many hands. The scent of beeswax polish mingles with roasted meat and fresh bread. Somewhere nearby, a small harp is being tuned, its strings humming softly, each note lingering like the sound of falling rain. The servants move slowly and quietly, their footsteps muffled on the rushes strewn across the floor. Dried herbs and grasses, scattered to perfume the air at the high table. A lord and lady sit in calm silence, not with the pomp of royalty, but with the quiet dignity of those who tend to land and people. Their faces glow in the amber light of the torches. The lady's gown is deep blue wool, trimmed with fur to keep the chill away. The lord's tunic bears the faint marks of a day spent outdoors, checking on the flocks before the dusk settled in. They do not speak much, for the evening meal is meant to soothe, not to stir. Down the length of the hall, villagers and guests find their seats, each in their proper place, not in strict order, but in gentle understanding. Those who work in the fields, the cooks, the blacksmith's wife, the steward, all gather under the same beams, the same roof, the same halo of warmth. There is something timeless in this image, a gathering that could have belonged to any century. People sharing food after a day's labor, their laughter soft and drowsy as the night deepens. The first course is carried in a thick pottage of barley. Onions and herbs simmered since midday over the kitchen hearth. The smell is comforting, rich with rosemary and thyme, like a memory of summer held in a steaming bowl. Each wooden spoon dips slowly, and the sound of quiet eating fills the air. The rhythm of contentment, the music of sustenance. In those days, dinner was not rushed. There were no clocks to measure time precisely, only the flicker of fire and the shifting colors of the sky. The meal unfolded as naturally as breath, one dish following another, conversation rising and falling like waves. Between courses, the harpist plays a tune so soft that it almost disappears, as though the melody itself is shy. The walls of the great hall are hung with woven tapestries, each telling its own quiet story. A hunting scene here, a garden there. But tonight, their colors are subdued in the golden half-light. The fire in the great hearth burns slow and steady, the logs glowing deep orange. Now and then, a spark leaps upward, tracing a fleeting arc before vanishing. The warmth moves through the room like a living thing, far from the manor, beyond the hedgerows and the frozen paths. Other dinners are being shared too. In the cottages of the villagers, bread and broth warm the hands of families gathered around smaller fires. The air smells of peat and smoke. The walls creak gently as the wind brushes against them. Somewhere, a baby stirs, then quiets again at the sound of a mother's soft humming. Even the dogs outside curl close to one another, content in the rhythm of this shared evening dot. But here, in the great hall, the meal continues with a gentle grace. Roasted root vegetables glisten with honey glaze. A dish of stewed apples and pears fills the air with sweetness. The guests eat slowly, their movements unhurried, their minds softened by warmth and fullness. It is not just food they share, but peace, the kind of peace that seeps into the bones and stills the racing of thoughts. A servant refills a cup with ale, pale and slightly sweet, brewed from barley grown not far from here. The taste is light, earthy, familiar. Candles flicker and reflect in the polished metal of goblets and platters. Somewhere, faintly, a winter wind sighs through the chimney, blending with the crackle of burning logs, the sounds of safety and home. Conversation drifts to simple things. How well the harvest kept through the cold months, how the bees might fare come spring, or how the eldest son of a nearby tenant has learned to play the flute. The voices murmur low and steady, their tones soft and rounded. Even the laughter, when it comes, is quiet and affectionate, like a lullaby shared between friends. There is a rhythm to these old suppers, a sacred slowness. The courses arrive not as spectacles, but as blessings. A pie of venison, seasoned with nutmeg and black pepper, costly spices brought by merchant ships from far-off lands. A platter of boiled greens from the manor garden. Trenchers, of course, bread, used as plates, later fed to the hounds or the poor. Nothing is wasted. Everything has its place in the great circle of nourishment. And as the evening deepens, the candles burn lower. The servants move like ghosts of light, gathering dishes, carrying new ones. The harpist's music turns dreamlike, drifting into ancient melodies that no one remembers learning. The sound fills the rafters and floats among the tapestries, a lull of strings and breath. The lady of the manor closes her eyes for a moment, simply listening. The sound reminds her of her girlhood by the river, the way reeds swayed in the current, the way dusk painted the water silver. Perhaps you, too, can feel that softness, that deep, unhurried peace that comes when one simply listens to the quiet dot. At last, the meal begins to draw to its end. The final dish, a custard sweetened with honey and spiced with cinnamon, is set before them. The scent is warm and golden, like sunlight made edible. It melts on the tongue, smooth and soothing. No one rushes. Time seems to pause altogether, wrapped in comfort. Afterward, the tables are cleared, and a gentle hush returns to the room. The harp falls silent. The fire hums in the hearth, the flames moving lazily, as though they too are growing sleepy. The Lord raises a hand in quiet thanks, not in speech, but in a small gesture of gratitude to the cook, the servants, the guests, to all who share the night's peace. Outside, the sky is deeper now, a tapestry of indigo and silver. The moon has climbed higher, spilling its light across the rooftops and meadows. A barn owl glides silently above the fields, its wings like whispers. The earth seems to breathe with the slow rhythm of sleep. One by one, the candles are snuffed out. Thin threads of smoke rise and curl toward the rafters. The scent of beeswax lingers in the air, mingling with the faint sweetness of the feast that has been. Shadows lengthen, soften, and fade in the hush that follows. You might imagine the faint sound of someone humming, a kitchen maid tidying the last of the bowls, singing a tune to herself, her voice low and melodic. The sound wraps around the space like a blanket, comforting and tender. It is a reminder that warmth endures, that long after the noise of day has passed, the heart of the home still glows. Soon everyone will retire, the lord and lady to their chambers upstairs, the servants to the smaller rooms near the kitchen, the dogs to their straw by the hearth. The great hall will fall completely silent, save for the crackle of cooling embers and the sigh of the night wind. This was what dinner was like, 600 years ago. Not grand, not hurried, not forgotten. It was a ritual of connection, of gratitude, of slowing down beneath the gentle pulse of firelight. A communion between people and time, between earth and sky, between the living and those yet to come. So let the image settle in your mind, the last glow of the hearth, the scent of baked bread, the echo of soft laughter fading into stillness. Let it cradle you, as though you are sitting there among them, wrapped in a blanket of warmth and peace. And as the hall darkens, and the last candle flickers out, the night itself seems to whisper, "Rest now. The day is done. The fire will keep you." Now, close your eyes and breathe deeply. We'll step softly into the next part of the night, into the slow, glowing rhythm of another time. Chapter 2. The kitchen at dawn. The night has drifted away, leaving behind a pale silver hush. Morning begins quietly in the manor's kitchen, long before the household wakes. The air is still cool, touched with the dampness of early dew, and the faint grey light seeps through the narrow windows, like milk poured into shadow. The great fire has slept through the night, its embers buried under ash. Now, with careful hands, the first of the cooks kneels before the hearth. She stirs the ashes, coaxing the faint orange heart of warmth to return. With a soft breath, she feeds it a sliver of kindling, then another. The fire stirs, stretches, and sighs, awake a sleepy flame dancing to life. The kitchen is large, though not grand. Its walls are thick with centuries of warmth, blackened by smoke, but comforted by the scent of bread and herbs that never quite fades. Hanging from wooden beams or iron pots, ladles and drying herbs, thyme, sage, rosemary, and lavender. Their colors dulled, but their fragrance still bright. The first sound of the morning is the crackle of that waking fire. It fills the room with the music of renewal. Tiny pops, soft flutters, the faint sound of wood exhaling its stored light. Soon the fire glows steady, spreading its warmth through the stones. The cook, a woman with kind eyes and sleeves rolled high, hums under her breath as she works. Her song has no words. It is a rhythm of movement, a melody for kneading and stirring. Soon, the air grows rich with the scent of yeast and flour as she shapes the first loaves of the day. Outside, the world is waking too. A rooster calls from somewhere beyond the stable yard. A horse stamps softly in its stall. The sky blushes faintly, just beginning to let the sun peek through the mist. Everything moves slowly here, as though time itself is wrapped in wool 600 years ago. A kitchen was the heart of the home. The fire never truly went out. It only rested. The people who tended it were caretakers of warmth, keepers of the house's pulse. Every meal, every loaf, every simmering pot began here, in the quiet glow of dawn. Now, others begin to join her. A young boy enters, rubbing sleep from his eyes, his hair sticking up like straw. He carries a bundle of wood, setting it by the hearth. The cook smiles softly at him, and without a word, he begins to fetch water from the barrel. The sound of it pouring clear and steady fills the silence like a gentle stream. The second cook arrives next, a man with a slow gait and a calm face. He tends to the meat from the previous night's hunt, trimming, salting, hanging it near the cooler wall. He moves with unhurried grace, as though each motion has been done 1,000 times before, and it has, soon. The rhythm of the kitchen builds, the scrape of knives on wooden boards, the soft rustle of flour, the crack of an egg, the sigh of bread rising near the fire. It is a symphony of small, soothing sounds. There is no rush, no clang, no urgency, only the gentle hum of purpose. Outside, the manor begins to stir. Footsteps echo faintly on the stone stairs. The servants above wake to the smell of baking bread. In the courtyard, the stable boy hums a tune of his own while brushing the horses. Everything is linked, the warmth of the kitchen spreading outward, awakening the whole household. The cook pauses a moment and leans near the small window above the hearth. The view outside is mist and pale light, but she can see the faint outline of the orchard, bare branches glittering with dew. Beyond that, a small figure moves through the fog, the gardener, perhaps, beginning his morning rounds. It is a sight that has repeated itself countless times, yet it always feels quietly miraculous, life unfolding again, softly and without hurry. The bread is nearly ready now. The smell of it fills every corner of the room, sweet and comforting. The boy opens the oven door, and a wave of heat rolls out, warm enough to fog the air. He grins, the same way countless apprentices have grinned at the simple joy of success. The loaves are golden and perfect, their crusts split slightly to reveal soft white within. Set them by the window, the cook whispers, her voice calm and low. Let the air kiss them before the sun climbs too high. The morning light catches the steam as it rises from the loaves, curling like ghosts into the air. It's a sight to remember, a glimpse of centuries past and the eternal comfort of fresh bread in the quiet morning. On the other side of the kitchen, a pot of water begins to bubble softly. Into it go handfuls of oats, stirred slowly with a wooden spoon. The scent is nutty and simple. A pinch of salt, a touch of honey. The cook hums again, and the sound blends with the soft gurgle of the pot. When the manor's lord finally enters, hours later, the kitchen is already glowing with warmth and life. His step is slow, his expression calm. He nods to the cooks, to the boy, to the old hound lying near the hearth. He says nothing, only breathes in deeply, as though the scent itself is his morning prayer. He takes a piece of bread from the tray, still warm, and breaks it open. Steam curls upward, and he closes his eyes, savoring it. The moment stretches, timeless, peaceful, whole. For a long while, no one speaks. There is no need. Words would only disturb the stillness that has settled like silk over the room. The only sound is the fire's slow breathing, the creak of wood, the rhythm of life beginning again. When the first light of full morning finally touches the stone walls, the cook glances toward it. The sun spills through the window, turning the dust in the air to gold. Everything feels touched by grace, the loaves, the pots, the faces gathered in warmth. This is how days began, long ago, not with haste or noise, but with care, with hands that shaped and stirred and tended, with the patience of those who knew that nourishment was more than food. It was comfort, connection, and quiet gratitude. The kitchen will stay alive all day. Fires will rise and fall, meals will come and go. But this hour, this tender beginning, will always be the most precious. The one where silence still lingers, and every breath feels like a blessing. The cook smooths her apron and steps outside for a moment. The air is cold, sharp, but sweet. She can smell the earth waking. The fields stretch before her, pale and calm under a blanket of morning mist. Birds sing softly from the hedgerows. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls, marking the hour of prime, the first prayer of the day. She closes her eyes, feeling the chill on her skin, the warmth at her back from the kitchen fire. It is a balance that feels eternal, the meeting of cold and warmth, dark and light, sleep and waking. The kind of moment that makes one feel quietly alive. Then, with a deep breath, she turns and goes back inside. The door closes gently behind her. The sound of her footsteps blends once more with the kitchen's calm rhythm. The fire hums. The bread cools. The day begins in earnest, and through it all, the manor seems to whisper through every crack in its old stone, through every sigh of wind at its windows, the same message that it has carried through the centuries. Be still. Be warm. There is time enough for everything. Let's move onward, slowly from the warm stone kitchens to the open air of the world beyond. Settle in, breathe deeply, and let the sound of the morning unfold around you. Chapter 3. The market before noon. The mist has begun to lift from the meadows, revealing a world washed in soft, pearly light. The fields are still damp, their edges silvered with dew, and in the distance, a faint hum of life begins to stir. The marketplace awakening. 600 years ago, markets were the heartbeat of the day. They were not loud in the way cities are now. Their rhythm was gentler, guided by footsteps and voices rather than engines and horns. As the sun climbs higher, the path from the manor to the village becomes a ribbon of soft earth. Along it, carts creak slowly, pulled by patient horses, their hooves muffled in the damp soil. The scent of hay, of leather, and of rain-soaked wood drifts through the air. A woman walks beside one of the carts, her shawl drawn close against the cool breeze. She carries baskets woven from willow, filled with eggs, bread, and herbs gathered that morning. Her pace is unhurried, her breath steady. The sound of her footsteps mingles with the soft clucking of hens in a nearby crate. Every few moments, she pauses to look at the sky, the pale, gentle blue deepening with the warmth of the sun. By the time she reaches the village, the market is already unfolding like a flower. Stalls are being set up under broad canvas sheets. Wooden tables are spread with simple goods, jugs of milk still cool from the morning's milking, wheels of cheese wrapped in linen, bundles of herbs tied with string, pots of honey glinting gold in the light. Everything smells of freshness, of earth and meadow and wood smoke. The market square is not large, but it feels alive in the softest way. Chickens wander near the edge of the stalls, their feathers catching light. Children carry buckets of water from the well, their laughter light as the sound of bells. Old men sit on benches carved long ago, watching the bustle with eyes half closed, their hands resting on canes polished smooth by time. The woman sets her baskets down at her spot, a small table beneath a linden tree whose leaves whisper faintly in the breeze. She greets the others nearby with quiet warmth, the potter whose hands are dusted white with clay, the shepherd's wife selling wool, the baker's apprentice with crumbs still clinging to his tunic. There is comfort in the routine, the familiarity of faces, of voices, of the slow rhythm of exchange. A man approaches, his beard sprinkled with grey, his eyes kind. He asks after her bread, and she answers softly, offering him a loaf still faintly warm from the oven. He smells it, nods, and places a few coins in her hand. The exchange is simple, almost sacred, one of those small acts that keep the world turning quietly and well overhead. A group of pigeons takes flight, circling the rooftops before settling again near the church steeple. The bells ring faintly, announcing the hour of terse mid-morning prayers. For a moment, everyone pauses, not to kneel, not to speak, but simply to listen. The notes drift through the air, long and clear, echoing against stone and wood. The sound feels like sunlight made audible. As the hour passes, the market grows gently busier. A musician sits near the fountain, plucking at a lute. The melody he plays is slow, lilting a tune for wandering thoughts. Children dance in small circles, their movements loose and free. A few villagers hum along, their voices low and tuneful. The air seems to shimmer with peace. At one stall, a spice merchant lays out small wooden boxes filled with wonders from faraway lands. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg. Their scents mingle with those of bread and honey, creating something dreamlike. People lean close to breathe them in, eyes half closing at the richness. To them, these spices are treasures, reminders that the world is wide and full of stories. Nearby, an old woman sells candles of beeswax. Their smooth golden surfaces catch the sunlight, glowing faintly. She tells those who stop that each one is made with patience. The wax melted slowly, poured gently, cooled by time alone. Her voice is soft and rhythmic, as though she, too, has learned from the bees to move with calm purpose. There is a sense, here, that everyone belongs. No one hurries, no one shouts. The market is not a place of urgency, but of quiet connection, of hands passing goods, of smiles exchanged, of small kindnesses shared without thought. Even the air itself seems to sigh in contentment. The woman who came from the manor finishes her bread sales by late morning. She leans against the tree and sips from a small flask of cider, sweet and cool. Around her, the world hums softly. The sound of the lute, the chatter of neighbors, the faint buzzing of bees drawn to the honey stall, all blend into a single gentle melody, a song of everyday life. She watches a young couple at the far end of the square, laughing as they choose a bundle of herbs. She watches a child chase a stray feather across the stones, its path drifting like a dream. These are moments without weight or measure, yet they fill the air with quiet joy. When the sun reaches its highest point, the market begins to slow. People linger, talking softly in the shade. A cool breeze moves through, carrying the scent of grass and warm bread. The bells of the church ring again, this time for sext, the midday prayer. Some bow their heads, others simply pause, letting the sound wash through them. In the pause that follows, the market feels suspended, as though the whole world has taken a single long breath. The sunlight filters through the leaves of the linden tree, dappling the stalls and faces below. Dust motes drift in the light like golden snow. The woman closes her eyes. She feels the warmth of the sun on her cheeks, the cool touch of wind on her hands. Somewhere, the lute player hums the last notes of his tune. A dog sighs and settles near her feet. Everything slows to the rhythm of rest. It is easy to imagine this scene repeating across centuries in every village, every town, wherever people gather to trade, to share, to connect. The details change, but the feeling remains the same, that gentle hum of life, the peace of belonging, the warmth of being part of something simple and whole. When the woman finally gathers her baskets to return home, the road is bright with sunlight. Her steps are slow, her heart steady. She passes fields of ripening grain, their stalks whispering together in the breeze. Birds wheel lazily overhead, their wings glinting white against the blue dot. By the time she reaches the manor gate, the air has grown soft with the scent of afternoon. The kitchen smoke rises again, thin and grey against the sky. Somewhere inside, the cooks are preparing the next meal. The rhythm continues, just as it has always done, day turning to night, effort giving way to rest, sound to silence. Before she goes inside, she looks once more toward the distant village. From here, it is only a cluster of rooftops in the valley, softened by haze. The faint echo of the bells drifts up the hill. It sounds like gratitude, or perhaps simply like peace. And as she steps back into the cool shadow of the hall, she carries that peace with her, the calm of the market, the hum of life, the gentle comfort of knowing that the world, in all its quiet cycles, is still kind. The fire greets her like an old friend. The scent of herbs and warm bread fills the air once more. And somewhere, faintly, a harp begins to play. Outside, the sunlight lingers, golden and still, the long, slow breath before the evening returns. Let's ease into the golden glow of evening, where the air smells of earth and wood smoke, and the village gathers once again, this time for celebration. Close your eyes if you wish. Let the rhythm slow. Let the sound of the old world surround you. Chapter 4. The Feast of the Harvest Moon. The day has softened into a quiet, golden dusk. The sun dips low across the fields, touching each sheaf of grain with its final warmth, and the scent of the harvest drifts through the air. Hay, apples, smoke, and the faint sweetness of crushed grass beneath careful feet. It is the night of the harvest moon, when the sky turns wide and pale, and the village gathers to share what the earth has given. For weeks they have labored, cutting, binding, stacking, threshing. The rhythm of the scythe and flail has filled every daylight hour, and now, as the moon rises full and round, their work is done. This is not a night for toil or talk of yield. It is a night for rest, for food, for the simple joy of being together beneath the wide autumn sky at the edge of the village green. Fires are kindled, not fierce, but steady and bright, their smoke curling lazily into the cooling air. The scent of roasting meats mingles with that of baked apples, buttered bread, and herbs steeped in broth. The tables, long and wooden, are laid out under lanterns that swing gently from ropes strung between trees. The manners cook, the same kind-eyed woman from mornings before, moves among the tables with quiet satisfaction. Her sleeves are rolled, her cheeks touched with warmth. She oversees the final touches, the platters of vegetables glazed with honey, the baskets of bread, the bowls of fruit polished until they shine like jewels. Her hands are steady, practiced, filled with purpose. Around her, laughter rises and falls like the tide. The villagers arrive in slow waves, carrying their own offerings, a crock of butter, a jug of cider, a pie filled with blackberries from the hedgerows. No one comes empty-handed, for the feast belongs to everyone, lord, laborer, shepherd, and child. Beneath the same moon, all stand as equals. The musicians begin to play just as the last light fades. The sound is gentle at first, a lute, a flute, a soft drum keeping time like a heartbeat. The melody winds through the gathering like a warm breeze. It carries stories of old harvests, of good weather, of seasons turning with patience and grace. As night deepens, the moon climbs higher. Its light spills across the fields, bright enough to cast shadows even in darkness. The stubble of the harvested wheat glimmers pale gold, and the trees surrounding the green rustle softly. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls, low, calm, unhurried. At the high table, the lord and lady sit side by side. Their clothes are simple tonight, without embroidery or jewels. They raise their cups in quiet gratitude, not to command, but to share. The Lord's voice carries softly over the hum of the crowd. To the earth that fed us, he says. To the hands that worked it, replies the lady. And to the peace that holds us, the people murmur in return. The words are not rehearsed. They are part of something older, something known by heart. They are the language of gratitude, the sound of a people pausing to remember that plenty is never guaranteed, that every loaf and apple and ear of grain is a gift. The first plates are filled, and the meal begins. There is roasted chicken brushed with herbs, salted pork, and pies filled with onions, apples, and eggs. Each dish carries the taste of the season, earthy, sweet, and comforting. Children sit cross-legged on the grass, their faces lit by firelight, their eyes wide with delight as they bite into soft bread dripping with butter. Everywhere there is the sound of contentment, not loud, not hurried, a soft murmur of joy, of fullness, of belonging. The air itself seems to breathe along with them. The musicians play a slower tune now, one meant for the moon's hour. The rhythm is like the sway of tall grass, the rise and fall of waves, the pulse of a heartbeat. A few couples stand to dance, not with skill or show, but with the simple grace of those who have known one another all their lives. Bare feet on cool grass, hands meeting and parting, laughter threading between the notes. Even those who do not dance feel the rhythm inside them. Old women tap their feet softly beneath their skirts. The cook hums under her breath as she stirs a pot of spiced cider, the steam curling upward like ghosts of summer warmth. The smell of cinnamon and clove drifts through the air, wrapping around the gathering like a shawl. Time seems to slow, then stretch. The night feels endless, tender, bathed in the soft silver of moonlight. The Lord stands once more and lifts a small loaf of bread, golden from the hearth. He breaks it in half and holds the pieces toward the crowd. "This is what binds us," he says quietly. "Work and warmth and one another." And for a moment, there is only silence, deep and full, as though the world itself is listening. Then, softly, as if the sound might break the spell, someone begins to sing. The song is old, older than memory, a harvest hymn that has no true author. It drifts from voice to voice, gathering strength like ripples on water. The words speak of the turning of seasons, of the patience of seed and rain, of rest after labor. It is not joyous in the way of triumph, but in the way of peace. As they sing, the moonlight grows brighter. The fires burn low but steady, their glow blending with the silver above. The air cools, but no one feels the chill. The warmth of the feast, of the company, of the shared song fills every heart. When the last verse fades, no one rushes to speak. They sit quietly, watching the embers drift upward and vanish. The only sounds are the crackle of wood, the murmur of the breeze, and the soft clinking of cups being set down. Children fall asleep against their parents' shoulders. The musicians rest their instruments. A dog curls near the edge of the firelight, its breathing slow and even. Somewhere, a woman laughs softly, not from amusement, but from sheer contentment. The joy of knowing the night is good and whole. The cook begins to tidy the table, her movements gentle, careful not to disturb the stillness that has settled. The moonlight catches in her hair. She hums again, the same tune that lingers faintly in the minds of all who listen. When the final cups are emptied and the last coals fade to a faint red glow, the people begin to drift homeward. The path through the fields is lit by moonlight, silvering every blade of grass. Their voices fade one by one, replaced by the quiet symphony of night, the rustle of leaves, the chirp of crickets, the whisper of wind through straw. The manor doors remain open a while longer. The cook sits by the hearth, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes half closed. She feels the stillness around her, the peace that follows fullness, the deep calm of knowing that nothing more is needed. Outside, the moon watches over the sleeping fields. It spills its light across the land, painting every furrow, every roof, every leaf with a sheen of quiet grace. This is the hour when even time itself seems to rest, and if you listen closely, if you let your thoughts drift like smoke, you might hear the faint echo of that old harvest song. Carrying through the centuries, the work is done, the earth is fed, the fire is warm. The day has fled. Now rest beneath the moon. For dawn will come, but not too soon. settle back, let your breath slow, and imagine the night a little older now. The embers still warm from the harvest feast, the roads quiet and silver beneath the moon. We will follow one gentle traveler, a minstrel on his way to share a humble supper, and perhaps a song before sleep. Chapter 5. The traveling minstrel's sup at the moon has climbed high now, round and luminous, bathing the countryside in its silvery calm. The fires from the village feast flicker faintly in the distance, their glow soft and low like sleepy eyes. Along the winding road that threads between fields and hedgerows, a solitary figure walks with easy patience. His cloak is worn but warm, and slung across his back is a small lute, whose strings whisper with every step. He is a minstrel, a traveler, a keeper of stories, a weaver of music that binds one village to the next. His boots press softly into the cool earth. The night air carries the scent of hay and smoke and the faint sweetness of apples fallen from orchard trees. The only sounds are the hush of his footsteps and the quiet song of the crickets. He does not hurry. There is no need. The moon is bright enough to guide his way, and the road itself feels alive, a ribbon of pale dust that remembers every traveler who has passed before. Somewhere ahead lies a small inn, a place he has visited before, where warmth and bread and soft laughter await. As he walks, he hums, not a song for the crowd, but for himself. The melody drifts out into the open air, thin and tender, rising and falling like breath. It mingles with the rustle of trees and the sigh of the wind. It is a song of endings, of journeys nearly done, of home found in small places. When he reaches the inn, the door is half open. Light spills out in golden threads, and the sound of voices hums softly within. The sign above the door sways gently. The wrens rest. He smiles at the sight, a name that promises comfort and peace. Inside, the air is warm and thick with the scent of roasting onions and ale. The walls are timbered and low, the beams dark with age. A fire burns in the hearth, its flames slow and steady, casting a gentle glow across the faces of those gathered. The innkeeper, a round man with kind eyes and a soft voice, looks up from behind the counter. "Evening, traveler," he says. "The road's kind to you, I hope." The minstrel nods and smiles. "Kind enough. It leads me where it should." "Then sit, lad. The stew's still hot, and there's bread if you've a mind for it." The minstrel bows his thanks and takes a seat by the fire. He sets his lute beside him, loosening its strap with a practiced hand. The chair creaks gently beneath him, its sound joining the slow rhythm of the room. Spoons against bowls, quiet talk, the occasional soft laugh. The innkeeper's wife brings him a bowl, thick stew of lentils and vegetables, touched with rosemary and a hint of cider vinegar. The first taste warms him completely. The bread beside it is dark and hearty, baked that morning. He eats slowly, savoring each bite, letting the flavors settle like a memory. Across the room, a small group of travelers share a low conversation. A merchant heading east, a farmer returning home, a woman spinning wool as she listens. They glance now and then at the minstrel, curiosity soft in their eyes. Travelers bring stories, and stories are as welcome here as warmth. When his meal is nearly done, the innkeeper approaches. "You'll play us something tonight, won't you? It's been quiet since the harvest folk went home." The minstrel smiles. "If the room has ears to listen, I'll play." "Always has," says the innkeeper. "The fire loves a song." And so, after the bowls are cleared and the candles trimmed, he takes up his lute. The sound of the first string fills the room like a sigh. It's a gentle tone, neither sharp nor bright, but mellow, deep, like the echo of old wood. He begins with a tune of wandering, a melody that feels like the road itself, winding and steady. The notes rise and fall, each one soft as a breath, until the room quiets completely. Even the fire seems to lean closer. Then his voice joins the music, low, calm, and sure. He sings of rivers that remember the moonlight, of hills that cradle the morning fog, of inns like this one, where strangers share food and kindness without question. The words are simple, but they carry warmth. Each verse moves like a lullaby, each refrain returning to the same promise, that no traveler is ever truly alone when the fire still burns. The people listen with half-closed eyes, their hands resting still. The innkeeper's wife leans against the counter, smiling softly. The merchant, weary from his road, lets out a long sigh and stares into the fire. The song seems to wrap them all in one gentle blanket of sound. When it ends, no one claps. Instead, there is a moment of deep stillness, the kind that feels sacred. Then the innkeeper nods slowly, as though acknowledging something wordless and true. "You've brought the night a bit closer," he says. "That's a gift." The minstrel bows his head, his fingers resting on the strings. "The night has music of its own," he says. "I only borrowed a little." Someone brings him a cup of warm ale, spiced with honey. He drinks it slowly, feeling the heat bloom through him. Outside, the wind brushes against the shutters, a soft murmur of branches and leaves. The room glows with that perfect balance of warmth and quiet, the kind that lulls the mind toward rest. Later, when the guests drift to their rooms and the fire burns low, the minstrel remains by the hearth. He plucks a few quiet notes to himself, letting them fade into the silence. The innkeeper places a blanket over his shoulders without a word, and for a while neither speaks. The sound of the fire is enough. Through the open chimney, a wisp of smoke curls into the sky, carrying the faintest trace of song. Somewhere outside, the moon slips between clouds, softening the world in its light dot. At last, the minstrel sets his lute aside. He stretches, yawns, and leans back in his chair. The firelight paints his face in amber tones, his eyes heavy with peace. Before sleep takes him, he murmurs a few words, half prayer, half gratitude, for warm bread, kind faces, and roofs that remember the weary. Then he closes his eyes, and the room becomes still again. Only the slow crackle of embers remains, the steady heartbeat of night. Outside, the road waits for morning, winding gently through the fields, ready to carry another traveler, another song, another story. But for now, all is still, and beneath the calm gaze of the moon, the wren's rest sleeps. will stay with the same soft, hypnotic rhythm, slow as candlelight, gentle as moonlit air. Now, let us drift quietly into the hush of royalty, not power, not splendor, but the calm at the heart of a sleeping palace. Chapter 6. The Queen's Midnight Banquet. The castle sleeps beneath the wash of moonlight. Its towers rise pale and silent against the velvet night, their stones cool to the touch, their windows glimmering faintly like the eyes of dreaming giants. The air outside is still, save for the faint rustle of ivy on the walls and the far-off hoot of an owl. The drawbridge stands lowered, reflected in the dark mirror of the moat, where ripples move as slow as sighs. Inside, the corridors are hushed. Torches burn low, their flames steady and small. Servants tread softly on the worn stones, their shadows long and delicate against the walls. The world is sleeping, peasants in cottages, monks in cloisters, knights in their barracks. But here, within the heart of the castle, one chamber is awake. It is the Queen's Hall, the Queen, whose name the people speak only with quiet reverence, sits before a wide window where moonlight pours like liquid silver. Her gown is soft and pale, flowing like water over the marble floor. A simple circlet rests upon her brow, gleaming faintly. Her face is calm, not regal in pride, but in peace. This is not a night for counsel or decree. It is a night for stillness, for solitude, for the gentle ceremony that few ever see. The midnight banquet, long ago. It began as a custom of remembrance, a way for rulers to give thanks for the harvest, the turning of seasons, the well-being of their people. But through time it has become something quieter, more intimate. A meal not for feasting, but for reflection. The hall is lit by candles, hundreds of them, each set in small holders of glass. Their flames dance softly, filling the air with the scent of beeswax and rosewater. Shadows ripple along the walls, their motion slow and hypnotic, like waves on a lake. The table before the Queen is not large. Tonight, she dines alone, or nearly so. Beside her stands her steward, grey-haired and patient, moving with the quiet dignity of one who has long tended such nights. He arranges the dishes with care, his movements almost ritualistic. The first course arrives, a bowl of clear broth, fragrant with herbs from the palace gardens, sage, marjoram, and a touch of mint. The Queen lifts the spoon slowly, her every gesture unhurried. The warmth spreads through her like light returning to shadow. Outside the window, clouds drift across the moon, dimming and brightening the hall by turns. Each time the light changes, it feels as though the castle itself is breathing. The second dish is set before her, soft cheese, fresh bread, a few slices of pear. There is no excess, no spectacle, only what is simple and pure. She eats little, savoring the taste of the fruit, the faint salt of the cheese, the freshness of the bread. Music drifts faintly through the room, though no musician can be seen. Somewhere beyond the great doors, a harp is played in another chamber. The melody slow, wistful, made of notes that seem to hang in the air long after they fade. The Queen closes her eyes for a moment. She listens. The song seems to speak of faraway things, of rivers glinting under sunlight, of children's laughter, of summer fields swaying in wind. It is the sound of memory, gentle and endless. When she opens her eyes again, the steward is pouring wine, pale as starlight, cool and still. The goblet catches the candlelight, and for a moment it glows. "Will you take more bread, my lady?" the steward asks softly. She smiles, her voice barely more than a whisper. "No, good friend. The night feeds me well enough." He bows and steps back, his face serene. The queen gazes once more toward the window. Below, the gardens stretch in neat rows, fountains glimmering faintly, hedges pale beneath the moon. Somewhere, a nightingale begins to sing, its voice pure and lonely. The sound drifts upward through the open casement, weaving with the harp's melody until the two are inseparable. The banquet continues. A small dish of honeyed figs is brought next, arranged upon a silver plate. The queen lifts one between her fingers, the syrup shining in the candlelight. The sweetness melts on her tongue, carrying with it the taste of sunlight trapped and remembered. She thinks of the year behind her, of rains and harvests, of weddings and births, of faces she has greeted and farewells she has spoken. None of these memories come with sorrow. They move through her mind like drifting clouds, each one soft, distant, beautiful. The night deepens. The candles burn lower. The harp's song slows to something more like a lullaby. Even the steward moves more quietly now, as though time itself is easing into slumber. The final course is brought forth, not for eating, but for offering. A simple loaf of bread and a cup of clear water are placed at the end of the table, beneath the moonlight. Tradition holds that they are gifts for unseen guests, the travelers who wander in dreams, the spirits of the land, the humble and the weary who find rest in the queen's peace. The queen bows her head. Her hands fold gently in her lap. She whispers a few words, not a prayer exactly, but something softer, more personal. For those who journey, may there always be warmth. For those who hunger, may there always be bread. For those who sleep beneath my stars, may there be peace. The steward lowers his eyes, and for a time, neither moves. The castle around them is utterly still, a world suspended in calm beyond the walls. The moonlight begins to fade as clouds gather again. The garden sinks into shadow, the fountains gleaming faintly like mirrors in the dark. The queen takes a final sip of water, sets her cup aside, and rises. The rustle of her gown is the only sound. The steward extinguishes the candles one by one. Each flame dies with a tiny sigh, and the room darkens slowly, the glow shrinking until only the hearth remains, a soft pulse of red and gold. Before leaving, the queen turns once more to the window. The night stretches before her, quiet, immense, endless. Somewhere, a faint breeze moves through the trees, carrying the scent of roses and earth. She smiles, and in that small, serene expression lies all the grace of her realm. Not majesty born of power, but of peace. When she leaves the hall, the door closes gently behind her. The steward follows with silent steps. And so the queen's midnight banquet ends, not with applause or ceremony, but with stillness. The hall remains dim and hushed, the table empty save for the untouched bread and water, glimmering faintly under the last threads of moonlight. In the silence that follows, one might almost believe the castle itself sighs a sound so soft it could be mistaken for the settling of stone, or for sleep descending on an old and patient heart. Outside, the nightingale sings once more. Its voice drifts through the window, rises past the towers, and disappears into the stars. The castle sleeps again. Let's return to the hush of the countryside, where bells echo softly through mist, and men in simple robes gather not in feasting but in reverence. We'll move slowly, as candlelight moves over stone, a rhythm of quiet prayer, warmth, and deep stillness. Chapter 7. The monastery's candlelit meal morning has long since faded, and now dusk begins to fold the land in its cool blue cloth. Beyond the village and the manor, past the winding fields and orchards, stands the monastery, its walls grey and serene, its towers pointing quietly toward heaven. The air here is different, touched with incense and the faint scent of herbs that grow in tidy beds along the cloister walk. The brothers who live within these walls rise before dawn and sleep after the final bell of compline. Between those two still points, their hours are shaped by work, prayer, and silence. And now, as evening settles, they move toward their meal, not with chatter or laughter, but with the peace of men who have made friends with silence. The monastery refectory is a long, narrow hall built of stone, smoothed by centuries of touch. Candles line the walls, their flames steady, their light pooling across wooden benches worn smooth by generations of monks. The air smells faintly of wax, of baked bread, of the stone itself, cool and clean and timeless. A single bell rings once, its sound low and soft, marking the hour. The monks enter, one by one, each bowing before the cross at the far end, before taking his place at the table. Their robes whisper as they move, the fabric brushing gently against the floor. No one speaks. Words are unnecessary here. The silence holds them all in quiet understanding. The cook, a tall man with gentle eyes, sets the meal before them. Tonight, it is simple fare: lentil soup, fresh bread, a few slices of cheese, and apples from the monastery orchard. The food is plain but comforting, warm, fragrant, and made with care. At the head of the table stands the abbot. He raises his hands and speaks a few words in Latin, a prayer for gratitude, for humility, for peace. His voice is calm, unhurried, its rhythm matching the soft flicker of the candles. When he finishes, the brothers bow their heads, and the meal begins. The sound that fills the hall is almost musical. the gentle clink of spoons against bowls, the faint rustle of cloth, the quiet rhythm of breathing. From a small pulpit near the wall, one monk reads aloud, his voice slow, measured, steady. The words are from a book of old teachings, a meditation on patience and kindness. His voice is not commanding, but soothing, rising and falling like waves. As he reads, the others eat in silence, their thoughts calm, their faces peaceful. The candles throw a soft golden glow over their hands, their bowls, the pages of the book. The shadows shift gently, never harsh, never hurried. Outside, the wind stirs the trees. Through the high windows, one can glimpse the fading sky, streaks of lavender and gold melting into deep blue. A single star appears, faint but clear. The sound of the world beyond these walls grows dim, the distant barking of a dog, the creak of a wagon on a far-off road, the sigh of evening settling over the fields. Inside, all is still. The soup warms the stomach, the bread fills the hand. Each monk eats until he is satisfied, but no more. There is no indulgence here, only balance. The act of eating itself becomes a prayer, a way of giving thanks, not with words, but with stillness. When the reader's passage ends, he closes the book quietly and bows his head. The abbot looks up, his eyes kind, and nods. A faint smile touches his lips, not of amusement, but of deep peace in the pause that follows. A moment seems to stretch and hold the space between one breath and the next, where time feels suspended. It is the kind of silence that soothes the soul, the kind that feels alive. The final course is served, a bowl of stewed pears sweetened with honey and dusted with cinnamon. The scent is gentle, familiar. Each monk takes a spoonful, savoring it slowly. The sweetness reminds them of the earth's kindness, of the bees and trees and sunlight that make even the simplest meal a gift. When all is finished, the abbot stands once more. "Let us give thanks," he says softly. The brothers rise. Together, they speak a prayer so quietly that it seems to merge with the breath of the candles. May this meal strengthen our hearts in gentleness. May it nourish not only our bodies, but our peace, and may the quiet of this night rest upon the world. They bow their heads. The words linger like the scent of incense. Afterward, the dishes are gathered in silence. The cook moves slowly, stacking bowls with careful hands. The others file out one by one, their steps measured, their faces serene. In the corridor, their soft procession fades into the distance, until only the sound of the fire remains, the steady, drowsy murmur of embers. The cook lingers a while longer. He wipes the long table clean, the cloth making a faint whisper against the wood. Then he sits down, resting his hands for a moment. He watches the last candle tremble, its flame reflected in the smooth surface of the table. He takes a deep breath, the kind that fills the lungs and empties the mind. When the final light is extinguished, the hall falls into near darkness. Through the windows, moonlight begins to seep in, turning the stone floor pale and silver. The air cools, fragrant with night and the faint memory of bread. Somewhere, in the chapel beyond the courtyard, the brothers begin to sing the last hymn of the day. The melody is slow and tender, a weave of voices rising and falling together. It is a song without urgency, without sorrow, a lullaby for the soul. The words are in a language ancient and beautiful, but even without understanding, their meaning is clear. Rest, peace, renewal. The cook listens, his eyes half closed. The sound fills the room like light, like prayer, like sleep itself, drawing near. He whispers a final thought before leaving a habit of his own making. A small devotion for every flame that fades. May there be dawn again. Then he steps out into the cloister. The night air greets him, cool and pure. The garden glows faintly in the moonlight, the herbs casting soft shadows on the ground. The fountain trickles nearby, its sound gentle as breath. He walks slowly toward his quarters, his sandals whispering against the stone. Above him, the stars burn steady and calm, each one a point of quiet light. And behind him, the monastery rests, its walls strong, its windows dark, its heart pulsing with the rhythm of prayer and stillness. The world outside may turn with noise and haste, but here time sleeps. Here even silence feels alive. All right. Let's drift from the hills and cloisters down to the water's edge, where the air carries salt and the promise of rest. This chapter will move like the tide itself, slow, rhythmic, and luminous with the last light of day. Chapter 8. The seaside tavern. At twilight the sun is sinking toward the edge of the world, its light turning the sea into rippled gold. The horizon glows softly, and every wave carries a line of silver that fades as it touches the shore. The smell of salt and seaweed mingles with the smoke of cooking fires drifting from the harbor. Gulls cry in long, slow arcs above the boats, their voices distant and lulling. Along the shore, the tide moves in and out with the steady patience of breath. Each wave hushes the sand and withdraws, leaving behind small shells that glimmer like scattered pearls. The wind moves through the grasses on the dunes, whispering secrets from faraway places, stories of sailors, storms, and calm waters under endless skies. At the far end of the beach, where the cobblestones begin and the smell of tar and wood thickens, stands a small tavern, the Silver Gull. Its sill creaks softly in the breeze, its paint faded by years of salt air. The windows glow with amber light. Within, the murmur of voices rises and falls like the sea itself. It is twilight, the quiet hour between day and night, when fishermen return with their nets and travelers seek warmth and food before the stars appear. Inside, the air is warm and alive with the scent of roasted fish, ale, and the faint sweetness of oranges brought from southern ports. The tavern is simple, low beams, wide planks, a great hearth at the center where a fire burns steadily. Nets hang from hooks along the walls, and the floor bears the marks of countless boots. But there is comfort here, the kind born of welcome and repetition. The people who come here know the sound of the waves outside and the feel of this warmth on their skin. At one corner table sits an old sailor, his beard silvered, his hands folded around a cup of cider. He stares at the fire, its reflection flickering in his eyes. Across from him, a young woman, his daughter, perhaps polishes a small shell between her fingers. They speak little. Their silence is easy, familiar, filled with the closeness of years spent waiting and returning. The tavern keeper moves among the tables, her apron neat, her smile calm. She carries platters of food, steaming bowls of chowder, loaves of bread darkened at the crust, and fish roasted with herbs and lemon. She speaks softly, her words gentle as the tide. Eat while it's warm, love. The sea will sing you to sleep after. At another table, two fishermen share a jug of ale, their laughter low and slow, never sharp. They speak of the catch, of the color of the sky that morning, of how the wind had shifted, but their words drift, their tone more rhythm than meaning. They are tired in the best way, the way that comes from work completed and peace earned. In the corner, near the window, a small group of travelers sit listening to a man playing a fiddle. His tune is slow, wandering, touched with melancholy yet deeply soothing. The melody rolls and bends like the waves beyond the door. Every note seems to shimmer in the air, lingering before it fades. The room's light grows softer as evening deepens. Candles are lit one by one, their flames small and golden. The fire hums quietly, its glow catching in the brass of tankards and the pale edges of plates. Shadows lengthen, but they are kind shadows, the sort that cradle rather than conceal outside. The sea turns darker, a deep blue that mirrors the sky. The moon rises, full and calm, laying a path of silver across the water. The wind cools but remains gentle, pressing against the tavern walls in steady rhythm. The door opens briefly, and the scent of salt air rushes in. A traveler enters, wrapped in a long cloak, his boots wet with spray. He nods to the keeper, who gestures to the fire. "Warm yourself, traveler," she says softly. There's soup still on the hearth. He thanks her and sits, removing his gloves. His face is lined from wind and sun, but his eyes hold peace. He accepts a bowl of soup, steam rising in little curls, and eats in silence. Between bites, he gazes into the flames, as though watching stories unfold within them. The fiddler's tune changes, slower now, deeper. It seems to tell of the sea's great patience, of the turning of tides, of all that drifts away and returns again. The old sailor hums along under his breath, a low sound like a prayer. The others listen, their faces relaxed, their minds far away. Soon, conversation fades altogether. The tavern has entered that quiet hour when words no longer serve, when warmth and sound are enough. The wind outside grows softer, the waves steadier. The world narrows to the glow of the hearth and the sigh of the sea. The tavern keeper moves through the room, gently clearing plates, her movements unhurried. She pauses by the window, watching the reflection of the moon ripple in a puddle near the door. Her face is serene, her breath deep. "Another good night," she murmurs, mostly to herself, at her words. The old sailor raises his cup slightly, as if in silent toast. His daughter smiles faintly and rests her head on her arms. The fire crackles softly, sending sparks upward that vanish before they touch the beams. As the night wears on, one by one, the patrons drift to sleep where they sit. A fisherman leans against the wall, his hat tipped low. The traveler folds his cloak beneath his head. Even the fiddler's bow slows, his last notes fading into the hush. The tavern keeper sets one last log on the fire. The flames rise gently, casting light across the sleeping faces, the worn wood, the hanging nets. She wipes her hands on her apron, then sits near the hearth herself. Outside, the tide retreats with a long, slow sigh. Foam gathers on the sand, glinting faintly in the moonlight. The sound of the waves becomes softer still, blending with the steady rhythm of breathing within. The keeper's eyes grow heavy. Before sleep takes her, she whispers a line she has said each night for years, part blessing, part habit, spoken to the sea and to the silence alike. May all who wander find the shore. May all who sail find calm. Then she lets her eyes close, the fire's warmth upon her skin. The sea's song wrapping around her like a blanket dot. The night deepens. The waves hush. The silver gull sleeps. Let's return inland now, to the heart of winter, where snow presses softly against windows, and warmth gathers like music inside old stone walls. This chapter will move like falling snow itself, slow, quiet, and filled with light. Chapter 9, The Winter Banquet in the Village Hall. The year has turned. The air is sharp and clean, the world wrapped in white. Beyond the fields, beyond the quiet lanes lined with bare trees, stands the village hall, small, sturdy, and warm at its heart. Its roof carries a soft quilt of snow. Smoke rises from its chimney in a lazy thread that curls toward the gray sky. Inside, golden light spills through the windows, glowing against the frost. The snow muffles everything. Footsteps, laughter, the crack of distant branches under the weight of ice. Only the church bell carries clearly, ringing once to mark the hour when the feast will begin. It is the middle of winter, a time when the days are short and the nights long, when the sun barely lifts above the hills before sinking again. But this night is one of celebration, the winter banquet held each year when the cold is deepest. It is not for grand ceremony, but for warmth, for companionship, for the reminder that even in darkness there is light inside the hall. The fire burns bright in a wide hearth built of rough stone. Its flames dance and crackle, painting the walls in shades of amber and rose. The scent of roasting meat fills the air. Venison brought down from the forest and seasoned with juniper and thyme. Pots of root vegetables simmer nearby, their earthy sweetness mingling with the smoky air. On long tables covered with linen cloths, loaves of bread rest beneath folded napkins, and mugs of ale stand ready. Evergreen boughs hang above the beams, their deep scent of pine freshening the air. Someone has strung berries along the rafters, bright as rubies against the wood. Villagers arrive in twos and threes, stamping snow from their boots, laughing softly as they shake the cold from their cloaks. They greet one another with gentle warmth, a clasp of hands, a nod, a smile. No one rushes. Everything about the evening moves in an easy rhythm, as if the village itself breathes slower in winter. Children sit near the fire, their cheeks flushed, their eyes wide. They whisper to each other, waiting for the music to begin. Near them, the old blacksmith tends the flames, turning a log with the poker, the sparks rising like tiny stars. The cook, the same woman whose bread has fed so many nights, moves quietly among the tables. Her apron is dusted with flour, her sleeves are rolled high. She hums a tune that sounds like the wind through trees. Every movement she makes is measured, gentle, assured. As the last of the guests arrive, the door is closed against the chill. The hall grows still for a moment. Then the village elder, a man with silver hair and eyes bright as candlelight, stands. He raises a cup, and his voice, though soft, carries through the room. "My friends," he says, "the nights are long, but they are not empty. The cold is deep, but it brings us close. The year has turned once more, and we are here together and warm." The people nod, some smile. The fire hums in response, as if agreeing. The first dishes are served, bowls of steaming stew, thick and hearty, bread still warm from the oven, cups of cider fragrant with cloves and orange peel. The room fills with a sound of contentment, spoons tapping gently, voices murmuring low, the soft shuffle of feet on the wooden floor. Someone begins to play a fiddle, the melody slow and lilting, its notes curling upward like smoke. The tune is an old one, known to everyone, a song of winter nights and fireside tales. A few voices join softly, humming along. The sound weaves through the room, blending with the crackle of fire, the clink of cups. The snow outside thickens. Through the window, flakes drift past the glass, catching the lamplight. They fall without sound, endless and calm. The world beyond seems to dissolve into a haze of white and silver dot inside. The warmth deepens. The walls hold it close, the air heavy with comfort. Faces glow in the firelight, children with sleepy smiles, elders with peaceful eyes. Even the dogs that lie by the hearth seem to dream contentedly. The meal moves gently from one course to the next. Roasted carrots, glazed with honey, pies filled with mushrooms and herbs, a bowl of berries preserved in syrup from the autumn harvest. Each dish carries the memory of a season now past, sunlight stored in sweetness, earth turned into sustenance between bites. People share quiet stories of winters when the river froze so solid that children danced upon it, of nights when the stars burned so bright they seemed to set the snow alight. Laughter drifts through the hall, soft, never sharp. like the ringing of small bells. The elder sits by the fire and listens. When someone asks for a tale, he begins, one slow and calm, about a traveler who once sought shelter here long ago, and how the warmth of a shared meal saved him from the snow. His voice is deep, even, his words flowing like the rhythm of falling flakes. The children lean closer. The adults sip their cider and smile as he speaks. The music fades, and for a while only his voice and the fire fill the space. The story ends, not with excitement, but with peace. The traveler asleep before the fire, the storm quieting outside, the hearth still glowing. When he finishes, the room falls still. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Then the elder nods, and people murmur softly, the way one does after a prayer. The candles are trimmed, their light steady and warm. Someone refills the cups. The musician begins again, a slower tune this time, one meant for the end of the night. The cook sits at last, her work done. She folds her hands in her lap, watching the fire. Its glow flickers across her face, softening every line into kindness. She listens to the fiddle, the murmur of voices, the deep quiet that comes after contentment. Outside, the snow continues to fall, thick and endless, blanketing the roofs and roads. The world is wrapped in silence. When the last notes fade, the elder stands once more. The year is turning, he says quietly. Let us rest and wake to its light. People rise slowly, gathering their cloaks, their laughter subdued but warm. They bid each other good night with the ease of family, their voices soft as the snow beyond the door. The hall empties. The fire burns low, its flames dwindling to soft embers. The cook remains a moment longer, placing one final log on the hearth. The sparks rise, bright and brief. She whispers to the room, though no one hears her but the fire. Sleep well, my friends. May warmth find you in every winter. Then she opens the door. The cold air rushes in, kissing her cheeks. The snow is deep, glittering beneath the moonlight. She steps out slowly, her footprints crisp and small behind her. The door closes gently, and the light from within fades to a faint glow through frosted glass. Inside, the hall grows still again. The last ember flickers. Outside, the snow falls, and somewhere far above, unseen stars shine steadily, patient and kind. Then this final chapter will move as dawn itself does, tender, pale, and full of quiet gratitude. No grand ending, no sudden brightness, just the world breathing again, slow and calm. Chapter 10. The king's table at dawn. The night has passed. Its long, silken hours have folded softly into light. Beyond the castle walls, the first sigh of morning moves through the land, a cool wind that stirs the trees and brushes the sleeping fields. The stars fade, one by one, their glow dissolving into a sky of pearl and rose. Somewhere far away, a rooster calls once, then again, his voice echoing across the stillness. Inside the castle, the torches burn low, their flames small and golden against the stone. The world is half awake, half dreaming still. The air holds the scent of smoke and lavender, of night fading and day not yet begun. In the great hall, the king sits alone at his table. He is not dressed in robes of ceremony or crown, but in the quiet garments of early morning wool and linen, simple, soft. The hall around him is vast, its vaulted ceiling fading into shadow. But the space feels intimate, filled with the soft hush that belongs only to dawn. Before him, the table is set for one, a cup of water, still cool from the well, a loaf of bread, torn rather than sliced, a single candle, its flame trembling as the breeze drifts through the open door. This is not a feast, not even truly a meal. It is a moment, a pause between darkness and day, a breath between dreams and duty. The king watches the light creep across the floor, inch by inch. It catches the grain of the wood, the dull gleam of silver, the dust rising in soft spirals. Each detail feels alive, ordinary things made holy by stillness. He tears a piece of bread and eats slowly, his movements unhurried. The taste is plain and comforting, touched with salt and warmth. He drinks from the cup, the water cool and pure on his tongue. Beyond the doorway, the courtyard begins to stir. Stable boys murmur softly to the horses, their voices muffled by the fog. The bell for prime, the first prayer of the day, rings from the distant chapel. Its sound long and low, rolling through the air like mist. The king closes his eyes. For a moment, the world is nothing but sound, the bell, the wind, the faint crackle of the candle flame. All blend together into something like a heartbeat. He thinks of his people, of the villages and fields and roads that lie sleeping under the pale light, of the manor where a cook kneads dough in quiet rhythm, of the tavern by the sea where the fire still glows, of the monks who rise now to sing their morning hymns, their voices rising like breath in the cold air. He imagines them all at peace. He imagines them waking slowly, gently, as he does now. The hall brightens as the sun reaches the horizon. The light pours in through the tall windows, spilling across the table in soft gold. The shadows retreat. The candle flame grows pale in the new light, its small labor complete. The king stands. His movements are calm, deliberate. He walks to the open doorway, the sound of his footsteps echoing softly. Outside, the world glows faintly, the dew on the grass, the mist over the gardens, the faint shimmer on the stone walls. He steps out into it, the air cool on his face. The sky is the color of pearls, streaked with the faintest pink. Birds begin to sing, one voice, then another, then a chorus, filling the morning with sound that feels like blessing. He breathes deeply. The cold air fills his lungs, and he feels something inside him ease, as though the night's weight has finally lifted behind him. The hall remains still. The bread lies half-eaten, the cup half full. The candle trembles once, and goes out, a thin trail of smoke curling upward. Its scent lingers, faint, sweet, and fleeting. The king walks toward the edge of the courtyard. Beyond the archway, the land opens wide, bathed in new light. He can see the river glinting in the distance, the faint outline of hills softened by mist. Everything feels washed clean, as if the world has exhaled and begun again. He listens, not for words, but for the silence between them, the silence that holds everything, the silence that hums with life. And in that silence, he feels it, a quiet thread that runs through all things. Monastery song, the tavern's fire, the laughter in the village hall, the whisper of the harvest fields, the stillness of the Queen's midnight prayer, all of it connected, all of it alive, all of it breathing. Together, the sun rises, slow and sure. The light touches his hands, his face, the edge of his cloak. He closes his eyes and lets it warm him. For a moment, there is no crown, no kingdom, no time, only the rhythm of the world, the steady pulse of peace. The birds sing louder now, the sound bright and tender. The mist thins. The king smiles faintly, the way one does when seeing something beloved and eternal. He whispers, though no one is near enough to hear, for this day and all that will come after, let there be gentleness. Then he turns and walks slowly back toward the hall. His steps are measured, unhurried. The morning wraps around him like a cloak of light dot, and as he passes through the doorway, the sun floods the room completely, banishing every shadow. The walls glow, the table gleams. The last curl of smoke dissolves into gold. The hall breathes quiet, vast, at peace. Outside, the bells ring again, calling the world to waking inside. The king's table stands ready, bread, water, light, simple, eternal, whole. And so the story closes as the morning opens, not with an ending, but with a beginning whispered softly to the dawn.